We are back on Taking Care of Business on Current Radio, News Talk, 1180, 1230, KGEO, 1410, KER, the Christian station, 1000 KKIM in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and 3 times a week on the Internet through knookmedia.com. So, Clay, what do you think of Brian Johnson?
Brian's always interesting.
Yeah, I love having him on.
He's a great guest.
Yeah, and again, the first time I interviewed him was 23 years ago. I can't believe that.
I'd like to see him move forward with Congress a little better.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, we have one of our favorite guests that we've been very, very, very fortunate to have as our final guest.
Blessed to have this guy.
Yes. He is the author of numerous books on the Middle East, including The Lost Spring. He's been an advisor to Congress, the European Union, and several governments, also the Fox commentator on the Middle East, Dr. Walid Phares. Dr. Phares, welcome back to Taking Care of Business.
Thank you so much. What an honor, just a day before Christmas, a day before my birthday, and your last broadcast for the year. This is wonderful.
Oh, it's funny because I saw on Facebook that tomorrow's your birthday, the 24th. We tape it today. It'll air on Saturday, but I was going to wish you a happy birthday. So,
well, thank you so much for having me today again.
I was watching an interview you had recently, and you made a point talking about Iran and how Iran, while we're busy with ISIS, they seem to be becoming a force in the Middle East again, and it's actually with our help. It almost seems like they have free reign right now. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely. The assessment is very dramatic, great concern. We have been drawn to the fight against ISIS, which, by the way, we're not making a lot of progress, and that is because of the Iranian obstruction. But regardless of that, the Iranian regime now, number one, is gaining time in terms of producing the strategic weapons. The entire 1 year that started in the fall of 2013 to 2014, which was supposed to be the year of disarming the Iranian nuclear program, we paid close to $1 billion in cash, according to that agreement, from Iranian frozen money. And they have postponed and postponed and continue to postpone, and the administration continues to accept that postponing. That's a disaster. But more important, on the ground, while we are striking ISIS in Iraq and Syria, what is the Iranian regime doing? They are strengthening their position in Baghdad. They are in control of the Iraqi army, which we are training. They are in control now of the Syrian regime of Bashar al-Assad, and they are in control of Hezbollah, obviously, which is in control of Lebanon. So across the board, while we are fighting one ISIS, the other bigger ISIS, which could become nuclear, is growing. And this is going to be a problem not just for this administration, for the next 2 administrations.
Well, and the other thing, Dr. Phares, that just blows me away is here it is. Okay, and let's explain again that $1 billion transfer of money. In essence, what we did is we released the restrictions we had on their money, and now they have access to that $1 billion. Is that what it boils down to?
Yes, we froze Iranian regime money when we engaged in the confrontation with the Iranian new regime, the terror regime, after the embassy hostages crisis and the attack on our embassies in Lebanon on the Marines. So from that time, we did not return this money, which is owned by the Iranian people, to the Iranian regime before we fix the issue, before we get justice on these issues. Now the problem is that the Obama administration, without, by the way, going back to Congress, remember, this is a good footnote, when the administration was asked to intervene against the Assad regime because of the use of chemical weapons, what did they do? They said, let's ask Congress. But now when they went and cut a deal with the Iranian regime with which we have a direct problem, unlike with Syria, Syria's regime is slaughtering Syrians. The Iranian regime killed Americans. And we did not go to Congress. The administration bypassed, went to those monies, released up to $1 billion out of another $7 billion that will be released, it's planned to be released this year, next year.
We are having a conversation with the author of The Lost Spring, Dr. Walid Phares.
What's the future for America in all of this, Wally?
Frankly, usually I have good answers. I did good books on prediction and projection. On this one, the problem is not in the region. The problem, we know what ISIS wants to do. We know what the Iranian regime wants to do. We know what every faction in the Middle East almost wants to do. What we don't know is what the administration wants to do. Even though we could suspect that this is their direction, even in what they want to do, they don't know how to handle it. Let's say they said, let's cut a deal with Iran. That's bad to begin with, but even that deal is not working. Let's deal with the Egyptian situation. Even the dealing with the Egyptian situation did not work. I am concerned that we are at a point right now whereby we have no answer because Washington continues in the same direction. If you tell me the U.S. Congress is going to change that direction, I'll tell you maybe we can do predictions. At this point in time, I don't know. Maybe early 2015 will start giving us some answers.
You know, one of the really crazy things here for me is when you go look back at Iran and what they're doing. You know, they're threatening their neighbors. They're threatening Saudi Arabia. Is Saudi Arabia flooding the market with oil in response to hopefully hurt Iran as well as Russia? Is that what their intent is?
Yes, but let me go back one little mile here, one little inch. The Iranian regime is not just omnipresent in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. It has been waging a campaign, a massive campaign of destabilization in the entire Arabian Peninsula, and that's for years, but now it has escalated. The minute we entered action in the Levant, Syria, and Iraq, then the Iranian regime went behind our back and is trying to destabilize Yemen. There is now a large militia in Yemen called the Houthis, which is operational, seized the capital of Yemen, and is marching, guess towards where? The coasts of Yemen on the Red Sea. The American public does not realize that the future problems in the region is being built now by the Iranians. Second, they're destabilizing the eastern province of Saudi Arabia, and they're trying to destabilize Bahrain as well. So yes, when this is happening, the Saudis are trying to do what they can do in terms of limiting the capacity of Iran to spend cash on these radical movements around the region.
So do you think by flooding the market with oil like they're doing, it does hurt Iran? I mean, it obviously hurts Russia. The ruble is going down the tubes. But does it hurt Iran?
It does. Yeah, it does hurt the entire network of Iran and Russia and their allies. That's true. But this is morphine. This will contain for a while. As long as we engage in the containment of Iran, the Saudis alone can only gain some time. But eventually, the Iranians will hurt the Saudis. And you know how? By waging terrorism in their eastern provinces where the Saudis are producing oil. So it doesn't look good for 2015.
Yeah, it's really goofy here. And then, the administration, I mean, last time we talked, I think we agreed that they were going to cut some kind of deal, but they haven't cut any deal with Iran. Is there any prospects for anything going to happen in that regard down the road? The
administration, it seems, is bent on cutting the deal at any price, at any time. When you have this attitude, what happens is that the Iranian regime would delay as much as they can. So yes, they'll say, we'll give you a deal 9 months from now. The question is, what is it they're going to do during those 9 months? They're going to gain more momentum, more control over areas on the ground. They're going to build more missiles. So by the time we come to the table of negotiations in 9 months with the Iranians will say, why do we have to cut a deal? At least why the deal that you want? We have an army of missiles right now. We are deployed from Yemen to Syria, to Iraq, to Lebanon. Why do you want us to have a deal whereby we're going to let go of our nuclear weapons? Let's have a deal on we have our nuclear weapons, but we have a security over these nuclear weapons. I can see it happening. I can see it coming, the way the Iranian regime thinks.
Sounds like the Iranians are going to be taking charge, and they'll be dealing with the United States rather than the United States dealing with them.
Oh, it has been the case. It has been the case for the past few years. And let me give you a benchmark. Remember when there was 1.5 to 2 million young Iranians demonstrating in the streets of Tehran in June of 2009? This was the benchmark. Had the administration stood in solidarity with the demonstrators, we could have shaken off that regime and 1/2 of the war on terror, maybe changed the politics of Syria and Iraq and Lebanon by not intervening, by actually sending the message to the Iranian regime that we have nothing to do with that. They understood the entire 5-6 years to follow, and that's why they know that Washington is bent only on a deal. They would never do anything that would destabilize the regime, and this is a point of strength for them, and they take advantage of it.
When we come back from the break, Dr. Phares, I want to talk a little bit about a book that just came out recently by Secretary of State Gates talking about the Middle East. And I want to see your perspective on it. We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Current Radio, News Talk, 1180.